Good morning. Bear Brief 5 November 25. Unscripted. Written brief is on Patreon, and I'll see if I can grab it and drop it on X this morning as well, so you guys can read for yourselves. But a few things. Puerto Rico, Roosevelt Roads military base closed about 20 years ago, showing signs of life again for the coming conflict in South Africa, Venezuela. That's an indicator. You don't just reopen and start rebuilding a military base in addition to having 2, soon to be 3 carrier strike groups in the region. Shut up, coffee pot. Coffee pot would be preferred, but instead, one of them little Keurig things makes 10 ounces of air quote coffee in one shot. Oh, look, a squirrel. All right. So Roosevelt Roads is opening up. In what capacity? Could it be limited? I don't know. But that's a freaking indicator. Why? Because we have giant jets that will make it from our country. Where in our country? Doesn't matter. There's only one base they fly out of. Sure. Yeah, there's only one base they fly out of. Just only one. Whatever. We have giant jets that can go anywhere in the world and put gigantic warheads on foreheads. So why do we need a base in the PR? In any event, so things to look at there. What just happened in Jamaica, the western half of the island, about 2,500 square miles, has been demolished by a hurricane. And that is tragic. And Grindstone literally has boots on the ground, doing recon right now to determine how we can assist. And that's all so that we're all clear here, being funded through separate donations, a separate line item in the budget, specific fundraising for Jamaica, so that we're not taking money that has been donated by Americans to assist Americans and putting that towards Jamaica. Now, love your neighbor as yourself. I know, but it's a separate line item for Jamaica. I'll finish this and then we'll hurry up and get to things that are maybe more interesting to you. Here's my point. I don't like it when American ministries take American dollars to go do counter trafficking elsewhere instead of here in America, which is why we have Caleb House. So we're not going to do that with Grindstone. We have a separate line item with separate donations for Jamaica, just so everybody's aware. And if that's something you want to support or be involved in, grindstoneministries.com. Beep boop the buttons. Venezuela. Russia sent Su-30 fighter jets and some tankers and a couple other large jets, large aerial assets to Venezuela because Venezuela has requested support. The Maduro regime has requested support. By the way, we're fully engaged in regime change in Venezuela, and cover for action here is this drug war. Which, yeah, drugs are bad, kids. Dare to resist drugs or whatever. It's way more than that. Okay, it's also reestablishing regional supremacy. The United States reestablishing regional supremacy in its own hemisphere. We're beginning to get a little Monroe Doctrine-y here. It's also resources and hemispherical resources. South America and Central America are a lot closer to us than Europe, Asia, etc., Africa. So, it's also, China has more than $60 billion in Belt and Road loans out to Venezuela, which is their diplomacy through usury, meaning that they would offer low or no interest loans to countries to build infrastructure, generally speaking, knowing that those countries would be unable to make the loan payments. So the terms of the loan would then allow the ownership of the infrastructure to revert back to China in the event that the loan goes unpaid. And that was always China's intent in the first place, because now they own the infrastructure, the means of production, and the means of sustenance, if you will. All the support mechanisms, or most of the support mechanisms inside a lot of these, what we would call third world and second world developing nations. That's done intentionally. It gives them a foothold. And they did a lot of that with funny money and very interesting accounting anyway, while selling Chinese products and using Chinese labor, which is every soldier a sensor, also putting their people, boots on the ground inside of all these other nations, Venezuela being one of them. So we have a Monroe Doctrine hemispherical conflict not that far south of the United States of America that is now including Russian aerial assets, 2 soon-to-be 3 carrier strike groups, the reopening of Roosevelt Roads military base in Puerto Rico, and Chinese infrastructure, and spooky guys from all kinds of different nations in conflict, we'll just say that, just in Venezuela, under the guise of regime change in Venezuela. There's more going on there than meets the eye. Wagner Group is also in South Africa, Wagner being the Russian little green men, not South Africa, South America. Although, for hell, all I know, they're in South Africa too. But Wagner Group is also on the continent, these being Russian mercenaries, little green men. So that's definitely something to watch. When we go back to Jamaica, the western half of the island has been demolished. Now, we should care for lots of reasons, but one of the reasons that we should care is it creates the opportunity for clandestine operatives and military personnel to amass on the island under the guise of humanitarian aid workers. And remember, FEMA, here domestically, Federal Emergency Management Administration, FEMA, for every $1 they spend on disaster relief, they spend $26 on continuity of operations and continuity of government, COOP and COG. That's why they're under the banner of DHS. That's their primary role, is continuity, not disaster relief. Disaster relief is covered for action, and in large part it's because disaster relief, the infrastructure used to effect disaster relief, is the same infrastructure that is used to effect continuity of government and continuity of operations. And that can be used both defensively and offensively. And so the amassing of humanitarian aid, say in Western Jamaica, which is now soliciting for aid from any nation that will show up and help, creates the opportunity where there's not a lot of fidelity on who people are and what they're doing. Creates the opportunity for people to come in and acquire and or procure all types of goods and services in a region that is already in conflict and heading towards greater conflict. Let's see, what else? New Yorkers are still retarded and air quote elected Mondami yesterday. Now, whatever. There were a series of dedicated denial of service DDoS attacks yesterday in and around New York City. There were also multiple bomb threats that were called in and around New York City yesterday. So it goes back to, can the voting be believed? I am prone to believe that the answer is no. The veracity of the voting system is compromised. No, it cannot be believed. I also, however, believe that it's quite plausible that people from New York City would elect an imported avowed socialist. The conditions are beginning to be set. And why do we care? Why do I care? I don't live in New York City. Screw those guys. Well, first of all, they receive a fair amount of federal taxpayer dollars, and you're probably one of those people. I am. Second, it becomes a port of entry, if you will, a permissive environment for bad guys to enter and operate and then disperse throughout the remainder of the country. Third, it's part of setting the conditions for what will become, in the relatively near future, I'd say within the next 15 months, everything everywhere all at once, including long-term, protracted, asymmetric conflict on American soil, especially including domestic bad actors that are already here. Yeah, we'll let that lay there for now. So Mondami got elected. Planes, they'd be falling out of the sky. UPS, Louisville, Kentucky, inbound to Hawaii, Honolulu, I believe. Large jet, McDonnell Douglas, something, fell out of barely got off the runway. Boots on the ground reporting indicated one of the engines on the left wing was on fire before it ever got off the runway. It barely got off the runway and landed, crashed into a field in a catastrophic explosion with approximately 280,000 gallons of fuel on board. And there were crew members on board. Initial reporting is almost always wrong, but reporting says somewhere between 7 and 13 casualties. Pray for those people. And why do we care? You may remember in Europe, over the last couple of years, DHL, for example, was losing quite a few planes. Now, the engine was on fire. We don't know how the engine got on fire. So I'm potentially connecting dots here that may not be connected, but it's worth considering, or at least reminding ourselves. In Europe, many planes fell out of the sky because of attributed to Russia, although I'm not entirely sure they acted alone in this, and or that they were even the bad guy in the first place, but attributed to Russia. There were bombs in the packages getting onto these planes that were blowing up and taking these planes out of the sky. That, coupled with, the government shutdown is still ongoing. They're talking about potentially all of these shitheads who are our air quote elected representatives getting together and passing a continuing resolution to fund the government for another 2 to 3 weeks in an effort to renew SNAP EBT. 2 to 3 weeks? How about you do your damn jobs, you pieces of shit? They're still getting paid, which is something that should be amended immediately. Trump's talking about getting rid of the filibuster, blah, blah, blah. We shall see. Back to planes. So the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, has said that if you're going to do some flying, get that flying handled within the next week, because they expect within the next 7 days upwards of 40% of air traffic controllers will no longer be coming to work. Okay, so bombs on planes, air traffic controllers, and then there's this little company called Boeing. You might have heard of them. And their shit just keeps falling out of the sky. Y'all know I don't public air travel. I just don't do it. I'm not interested in having TSA stick a finger up my butt. I'm not interested in the retinal scans. I'm not a punching agent. I'm not doing it. No, thank you. And the things that I like to travel with, the FAA frowns upon. We'll just say that. So in the event that I have to fly, I only fly if there's an immediate need. And that immediate need would be something like a Caleb House operation. And that's accomplished through some excellent partners who have very large hearts and small planes. I'll just leave it at that. So if you have some flying to do, I'd get that shit handled pretty quick. Or if you're military or prior service, I'd use military airframes, not public airframes. Okay. So Mandami, China, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, Caribbean. We talked about that. What else can I say? These ongoing Amazon Web Services, Google DDoS attacks, say it with me, everybody. It's almost as if there's a persistent and ongoing zero-day exploit that affects everything that touches the internet. Everything. Every single device that touches the internet, to the highest echelons of American society. Rulement around the 1st or the 15th of a month, unconfirmed which month yet. Why? Because people get paid 1st and the 15th, typically speaking. 72-hour period of blackness. There would be a communications blackout. During that time, expect a financial upset or reset? And that's all I can say on that, because I don't really feel like explaining how it is that I came about that bit of information, and betraying confidence is not something that should be done. Web services. Coffee, that's right. We made coffee. Coffee. Air quote. Look at that. Grossness. Now, pro tip. Bring some of this with you. Better than nothing. Let's give that a little sip. Pinkies up, boys. ASMR coffee time with Bear. What the hell else? Russia, we talked about that. China, Mexico. Oh, Claudia Scheinbaum has decided that it's time. No longer are we going to perpetuate the war on drugs. That's not working. So we're going to return again to hugs, not bullets. Hugs, not bullets. Okay, these cartel dudes have been working with Wagner. They've been working with Hamas. They've been working with the Chinese for decades. They are militarized. They are trained. They will literally cut people's heads off to accomplish their goal and their mission. But now we're going to hug them. Well, you think our government's corrupt? And the Mexican government is very bad. The conditions are being set. That's the overarching theme here. The conditions are being set for everything, everywhere, all at once, which is 5th generation warfare. I don't think it's quite trickled into most people's brains yet. When I say everything, everywhere, all at once, Pastor Joe uses a phrase, contemplate the unthinkable. Contemplate the unthinkable. What is the worst thing you can think of? Now double it, then double it again, then double it again, then double it again. Think about comms go black. The internet doesn't work. Grid goes down. Not high altitude EMP because that breaks stuff. And U.S. military doctrine is a retaliation against high altitude EMP. High altitude EMP would be treated as, is now doctrinally treated as a nuclear attack. So you get the smoke in retaliation, and you break infrastructure. You don't break infrastructure that you want to exploit and or occupy. You also don't nuke territory you want to occupy. Occupy. Note, I'm using the word occupy here. And also note, this is available open source. It doesn't matter how many times we reshuffle the chess pieces on the chessboard every time they run a scenario of US versus China currently, admitting China's current weakened state. China wins. In some cases, wins quickly, handily. They whip our asses. And as an American, that's not something I like. Because most of y'all are not factoring in the domestic conflict. Because for most of our lives, if not all of our lives, the conflict has always been over there, half a world away. It's coming here. So grid down, commo black, grid down via hacks, zero-day exploits, and infrastructural hardware issues, PLCs, programmable logic controllers, which touch the internet. Internet of Things, by the way, GE Smart Grid. You catching my grid now? My drift now? It goes away. Which means municipal services stop working. No fuel, no transpo, no communication, no intel, no med, no refrigeration, no heating, ventilation, air conditioning, no water pumping, no sewage treatment, no. Remember that Department of Energy white paper 5-6 years ago, 1 year from a grid down event, 90% of Americans are dead. The first 30 days, about a third of them are dead. In 30 days. Now add in millions of bad guys who have been here for years and years and years, training on domestic soil. Now add in external bad actors, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South America, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, etc. I thought the Saudis were our friends. No, the Saudis are a very different culture than ours, and they're businessmen, asterisk. Here's something to think about. Here's an indicator that everybody should be watching for. If there's going to be a regime change on the world stage regarding the world's lone superpower, think about America's greatest ally, air quote. Who's that? And then maybe do a little bit of digging on how they interact with America's greatest threat. How does the nation state interface with China? Because Americans can't figure out who's going to run the country every 4 years. Well, China's got a 400-year plan, while the nation state claims a 4,000-year history. Okay? Zoom out. So everything, everywhere, all at once, the conditions are being set for it. We've got the cartels are back in control in Mexico. They were never really out of control in the first place. We're staging for war in the Caribbean, war in Central and South America, while at the same time we've got millions of invader combatants, military-age males, on our soil already at the same time, while we now have an actual socialist in charge of one of the, air quote, greatest cities in the United States of America, which is where what is? What's headquartered there? Everything? Lots and lots of things are headquartered there, nationally and internationally, and also the stock market, stock exchange, New York Stock Exchange, many, many banks, et cetera, et cetera. Don't even start me on Titan Point, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Yeah. Oh, we haven't even talked about China's 20,000 missile plan yet. Well, we have, just quietly. Everything, everywhere, all at once. Do the things, boys and girls. That's our completely unscripted brief today. I'll find the written brief and throw it up. You guys know what to do. Praise the Most High. We woke up this morning. The show's brought to you by him. And it's brought to you by the wonderful people on Patreon. It's the beginning of the month. It's the best time of the month to sign up. So links is always in the description, or go to bearindependent.com. You'll find a link there. It's $10 a month. It's the best $10 a month you can spend on the internet. And then while you're over there, go ahead and subscribe to Viking Preparedness as well on Patreon, because that's where all of PJ's good stuff is. And I don't have a lot of time to be watching content, but I don't miss a Pastor Joe video, especially his World Sit Reps. If you like what I'm doing here, go check that out. And then, of course, Refuge Medical as well. This little tiny company right here, Refuge Medical, doing big things for the preservation of life. This is why I'm talking to you about this stuff, by the way. Preservation of life. I want you to make it. I want good people to avoid unnecessary suffering. That's my goal. With Refuge Medical, with Bear Independent, with Grindstone Ministries, with Caleb House, I want to mitigate unnecessary suffering for the preservation of life to the best of my ability. Why? Because I don't want you to go through the shit that I have had to go through. I don't want your children to go through the shit that I have had to go through. I want you to make it. But I can't do it for you. You got to adopt a little bit of personal responsibility here and do the things, okay? Maybe you're low pro, maybe you're in a contested environment and you need one of these, an ankle kit. This is the original Gen Zero ankle kit, okay? There are not many like it. There's one, and this one is mine. I've been wearing this thing for 2 years. I have baptized people in this. I have rucked many, many, many miles in this. I have worn this on Caleb House missions. I've worn this on disaster relief missions. I've done all kinds of things. I have right there, soft heat tourniquet, a decompression needle for a closed tension pneumothorax, a pair of shears for exposing wounds, flat duct tape, wound packing gauze, hemostatics. I even put a little baggie of Band-Aids in here. Chest seals. Yeah, there's chest seals in here. I don't know if I can do this one-handed. And here's the thing. There's a handful of people that make an ankle kit, but theirs doesn't stretch. This one's super comfy, and it's not super bulky. Okay? So it's lightweight. It stretches, so it moves with you while you move. And it's got a ton of capability in it. It's a blowout kit. Massive bleeding, yeah, tourniquet, hemostatic gauze, pressure bandage. There's a pressure bandage in there? Yeah, S-mark. Yeah, you can use an S-mark as a pressure bandage. And they're very low profile. Airway, respiratory. Yeah, I got chest seals. I got duct tape for manufacturing more chest seals. Expose, evaluate, evacuate, elevate. Yeah, shears, so I can cut my way in there. So, look at the dust. You guys see that? The dust that comes off, because I wear this thing. I use it. Look, combat gauze. Boom. Anyway, you get the point. Gloves. Okay. Duct tape. Wound packing gauze. Duct tape. Shears. On the ankle kit. So here's my point. The time grows short, brothers and sisters. The time grows short. Do what you can now to mitigate unnecessary suffering for the preservation of life. If you need some medical components, and remember, ruck, truck, house, plane, a layered approach, okay? Not just a blowout kit, a layered approach. If there's anything we can help you with there, come see us at Refuge Medical, refugemedical.com. Use promo code BearNation. That gets you 10% off everything in the store, including training. We have the Train the Trainer class coming up November 9th, 10th, and 11th. So soon, this Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Also, for your preps, don't sleep on our buckets. We have buckets full of medical components, wound care buckets, birthing buckets. We've had 9 babies that have been birthed with birthing buckets. So if you're an off-grid homesteader, or you're super crunchy and you wear that as a badge of honor, or whatever, birthing and postpartum buckets, burn buckets, surgical buckets, light field surgery, surgical buckets, okay? And they're the same size as all your other buckets that your food preps are in, so they'll stack. I did that intentionally because that pisses me off when the buckets are different sizes. Okay, so from a preparedness standpoint, get you some capability, layered medical capability, refugemedical.com. I share the show with somebody you love. That's how we win. It ain't algorithmically, it's the Bear Nation. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys and girls. And I'll see you when I see you. I need you, please, to contemplate the unthinkable. Start thinking most dangerous course of action, not most likely course of action. And whatever you can come up with for most dangerous course of action, double it, then double it again, then double it again, at a minimum.